Okay, my name is Sonia Marushka. I'm a junior at Bend Academy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with me. Would you please provide your name and some of your background information about your education and career?
My name is Mary Hallan FioRito. I am currently the Cardinal Francis George Fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center in Washington, D.C., and the De Nicola Center for Ethics and Culture at the University of Notre Dame. I am a licensed attorney in the state of Illinois. The primary time of my career I spent at the Catholic Archdiocese of Chicago. I was the first female vice chancellor for the Archdiocese. And I also, for almost 10 years, served as the executive assistant to Cardinal Francis George, who was the late Archbishop of Chicago.
Okay, great. My first question for you is, do you have a set of ethical principles that you use when faced with difficult questions or situations in your career?
Well, anytime I'm faced with a difficulty or any kind of what would be an ethical dilemma, I first of all always bring that to prayer. And if it is a question that I don't feel I can really get a clear answer to through prayer, I would speak to my spiritual director, and I would also speak to my husband and other trusted advisors. I guess my primary lens of ethics would always be the gospel. I suppose you could sum it up by saying I would always kind of ask myself what Jesus would do, but we know what Jesus did in the gospel. So the way he treated others, the way he stood up against injustices, those would be the things that would be, of course, a primary concern. I would always want to think with the church and act with the church. So if it was a question, for example, of, say, bioethics or an issue like that, I would look to the Catechism of the Catholic Church. If I still felt I couldn't get a clear answer, I would go to a trusted expert. And then after weighing all of those, making certain that what I was doing was not contrary to my Catholic faith or contrary to the Gospels, then I would proceed with a decision like that.
Okay. My second question is, do you think that any particular business question, decision, or situation represents a difficult ethical issue?
Well, I think what we're seeing right now, particularly for people who are Catholics, is that they often find themselves in employment situations where they might be asked to do something or to refrain from doing something that contradicts their Catholic faith and the practice of their Catholic faith. I guess you could look at, say, for example, Catholic hospitals that do not perform abortions and do not refer for abortions. And we actually have some people in society today who would like to force Catholic hospitals to, at a minimum, refer other people to abortion clinics, something we cannot and will not do. So that's a very clear example right now of something that's actually a very active issue in our country. Doctors and nurses and pharmacists all have right of conscience, and yet that conscience supersedes any kind of directive from the state. The state cannot make you act against a deeply held religious belief in your conscience, especially if it's a well-formed conscience. And so, that's probably going to become more and more of an issue, especially as we know the Supreme Court's very likely to overturn Roe v. Wade in June. So we'll see where that goes. But that's sort of it's a dramatic example, but it's also a very realistic example. There's a kind of famous case of a nurse in New York City who had in her contract that she would never be asked, she was an OBGYN nurse, but that she would never be asked to assist at an abortion procedure that was being done. And when they were short-staffed one day, she was forced into a room where the second trimester abortion was being performed. She objected to her supervisor and she was told, you go in or you're going to lose your job. And so she went in, but she sued the hospital afterwards and won because the hospital so clearly violated ethical principles that she had laid out as a condition of her employment prior to accepting the position, because she knew they did abortions there, but had assurance that she would never be asked to participate in one.
Yes, for sure. My third question is, have you faced any obstacles in applying your ethical principles in business situations?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. And For me, I have always had the luxury of really not being faced with any of those kind of dramatic moments because I worked for the Catholic Church for 28 years. So it wasn't like, it's easy for me to really admire the other people who do have jobs where they are placed in very compromising situations. Again, the medical field is one where this is sort of a primary issue. There are endocrinologists who do not want to provide hormones that would, stop puberty in adolescent boys or girls in order to help them to transition from one gender to another. That's kind of the common parlance. And endocrinologists who don't want to participate and don't believe that is good medicine or good health, they have been dismissed from their medical schools or medical departments. I've never had to face something like that. I guess for me, there's always, I think, for any Catholic who's serious about their faith, moments where we have to take a public stand for what we believe. Like, it was just Ash Wednesday last week. And, a friend asked me, gosh, can I just wipe the ashes off my face because I got to go do some meetings. I said, no, you really shouldn't do that. And you have a right to wear them. That is part of our First Amendment right of free exercise of our religion. Even if you work, for example, for the government, like for the post office, and you are a Catholic, you can wear your ashes, in a government setting, because that is, in the same way a Sikh can wear his turban, or a Jewish man might wear a yarmulke. There are certain religious symbols and signs that people of faith wear, and you have every right to do that. So, again, to get back to your question, I always worked for the church, so was never in that position, but I had the privilege of being able to advise others to help them live out their own faith in a very public way.
Okay. My last question is, do you have any advice that you could provide for me as I think about ethical issues that I may face as a young woman who will one day pursue a career?
Oh, thank you for asking that question. I think you are probably too young to have been alive during the papacy of St. John Paul II, but I remember him, I was in 8th grade when he was elected Pope, and of course, with Chicago having such a big Polish community and St. John Paul II having visited here when he was a cardinal, we were just, all so excited. All the high school kids and college kids and grade school kids, we all got the day off when he came to Grant Park for an outdoor mass, and everybody got to go to that. There were 1 million people in Grant Park. That was amazing. But one of the things that he is known for saying, kind of his tagline, if you will, was "Be not afraid." And remember, he was in Poland during the terrible, terrible years of communist oppression. There's a wonderful sort of biography video of a blessed named Blessed Jerzy Papiuszko, who was a Catholic priest for the Solidarity movement. And he, during this time of Soviet occupation in Poland, would hold these beautiful outdoor masses and just reminding the Polish people of their dignity as children of God. And the Soviets would come out with water cannons and mow the people down when they were trying to walk to mass. I mean, we think of our own lives, right? Like sometimes you're tired on a Sunday morning and you don't want to get up to go to mass. Imagine these people being mowed down by water cannons and, hit with rubber batons because they were going to mass. And because at mass, the Soviets knew the people heard that their rights don't come from the government, their rights come from God. And, eventually the KGB kidnapped Father Jerzy and they murdered him. But he was a tremendous example of what that kind of courage means. So I would say to you, be not afraid. If you're ever in a situation where you're being asked to compromise your values or what is right in your heart, how God, we call it the natural law, right? God writes on our hearts a particular way of life that we know is right. And sometimes, people are forced into decisions because they're afraid. I mean, I think we saw so much of this during COVID, right? I mean, people who had serious problems with getting a particular vaccine that's derived from the stem cells of aborted babies. And even though it's very remote cooperation, no one is saying that anybody who was vaccinated was responsible for that abortion. But there were some people who said, listen, I just can't participate in this in any level, and I'm not going to do it. And there's tremendous social pressure with something like this, right? And many people lost their jobs as a result, right? Yes. But I would, again, you can't make decisions. I would say don't make your decision in a knee-jerk position, but don't let anybody tell you how to think or how to feel or what's right if it's contrary to what you know God would want you to do. And if it's contrary to God's law, you know it's not right. Okay. So and there's that little inner voice, I think, that everyone has. God gives us our conscience and our guardian angels too, right, to help us. And so always, if you're in a position like that, ask your guardian angel for help. God has someone specially assigned just to you to help you in moments just like this. So don't hesitate, and don't be afraid to ask for the help when you need it. And then go to a trusted adult. If you really feel like you are being pressured or bullied, God forbid, into something, go to a trusted adult. What bullies want most of all is people's silence. They don't want anybody to stand up to them. So always know, don't let someone silence you. Even if you can't say something publicly, go to someone privately to get the help that you need.
Okay, that is very helpful. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you so much again for your time.
You're very welcome, Sonia. So nice to meet you.
You too. Have a
Okay,
nice
all right.
day.
You do the same. Thank you so much. Let me know if you need
Bye.
anything else, okay?
Oh, I will. Thank you
All
so much.
righty. You're very welcome. Thank you.